Yo, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Simply Better Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Anthony Rodriguez. Today, I'm joined with my boy, Brandon Greb.
Hey, yo.
And in today's video, we're going to be giving our rankings and analysis for quarterback Carson Wentz of the Philadelphia Eagles.
This is going to be part of a new series we're going to be doing called To Draft or Not to Draft, where we take a current player at their average draft position, and we're going to give you the pros and cons of that player and whether or not we would draft them at the end of the day.
Exactly, and we're going to let you know if these guys are SBFF approved, boy.
Yes, sir. So after putting up MVP numbers in 2017, Wentz succumbed to the injury bug, and as we all know, was replaced by the legend known as Nick Foles, who led the Eagles squad to their first Super Bowl win in team history. Now, although Foles is in Jacksonville, he's pretty much offered free food and drinks wherever he goes in Philadelphia. Very loved.
Well, I mean, you Eagle fans are kind of crazy. You guys kind of destroyed the whole city when you won that Super Bowl. So, I mean, I'm not really surprised that they still showed Nick Foles some love in Philadelphia.
Which brings me to another point of Philadelphia pretty much being the epitome of a devoted sports town. They really just want to see their team succeed, and when you're not performing to the standard, they will let you know immediately. Now, Wentz really has been welcomed with open arms for the most part when he's been delivering on the field. With Foles gone in a shiny new contract, the Eagles organization has handed the keys of the franchise over to Mr. Wentz. I think a lot of people overlook that a large part of football is the intangible nature of the game and the competitive nature that you need to survive. Wentz has already demonstrated that he has all the tools to operate in a high-powered offense, and at this point, he really has no other option than to perform. With the pressure of Nick Foles behind him being gone, it's really his time to shine now.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. I think this pressure is actually going to help out Carson Wentz this year because he obviously has some big shoes to fill. Like we mentioned before, Nick Foles came in, won a Super Bowl for this team, so Carson Wentz is really hungry and he's out there and he wants to win games for the Philadelphia Eagles in 2019.
Couldn't agree more.
So one of the things that makes Carson Wentz really appealing to me for the 2019 fantasy football season is that I like the fact that Carson Wentz has been evolving as a passer over the past couple of years. When you look at Carson Wentz just in general, this is a quarterback that hasn't reached his full potential in fantasy football, in my personal opinion. When you look at some of the stats that he has while he's playing, he's actually fairly productive. He's had at least 3,000 yards passing since he came into the league in 2016. He had at least 20 touchdowns in the last 2 years, and he was also averaging 17.5 PPR points per game before that back injury last season.
I think what really gets overlooked is the fact that throughout the past 3 seasons, Wentz as a quarterback has really matured, not only as a passer, but really also as a game manager.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. You definitely see this maturity growing with Carson Wentz over the years, and that's just something that I really like about him.
So another huge aspect that makes Carson Wentz such an attractive fantasy option this year is the overall offense. Doug Peterson is a coach that tends to lean more on the pass than he does on the run, and this year is going to be very powerful from a passing perspective. So just starting with the pass catchers, we have Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz, Nelson Aguilar, Dallas Goedert, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside acquired via the draft. And then also out the backfield, you have Miles Sanders to worry about and Darren Sproles, who is a little bit older, but still a threat out the backfield nonetheless. And really, when it comes down to it, all of these guys are threats that can make Carson Wentz so dangerous this year. And I think a lot of people overlook the power that having so many options truly has at the end of the day.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But also, don't forget that the Philadelphia Eagles went and got Deshaun Jackson.
Oh, how could I forget?
A guy from Tampa Bay. Now, when you look at Carson Wentz, just in general, this is a guy that's not really afraid to throw that deep ball. When you look at his stats last year, he ranked 6th in passing attempts that were more than 20 yards. But the only problem is with that is that he wasn't really successful with that, as he threw 4 interceptions and only 2 touchdowns total while targeting deep threat receivers. We're looking at a lot of reports coming out of camp and in the offseason. Deshaun Jackson and Carson Wentz are really connecting. So I feel like Deshaun Jackson gives the Eagles a better deep threat in 2019, and I also really feel like this overall helps Carson Wentz fantasy value in 2019 as well.
Certainly. I mean, last year, Mike Wallace was heralded as the huge deep threat that was supposed to bring in another element to the offense and did not end up playing at all. So Deshaun Jackson really is a huge upgrade, a monumental upgrade to this offense that's going to boost Carson's confidence at the end of the day. Another part that I think a lot of people overlook is that the offensive line of the Eagles is elite. And I mean elite. Pro Football Focus has them ranked as the first offensive line. And then you can't forget that they also addressed the line in the draft by taking Andre Dillard, who was the highest graded draft eligible tackle from the Pac-12 and excelled in pass blocking schemes. That is huge.
Yeah, there's no doubt the Philadelphia Eagles definitely invested a lot of time and money in that offensive line to keep Carson Wentz upright in 2019 so he can reach his full potential.
Another aspect that we have to take into consideration is the schedule, which Pro Football Focus ranks as the second on the list of favorable schedules in 2019. Now, if we skip forward to the playoffs of fantasy, we have the Dolphins, Giants, and the Redskins in that playoff stretch.
Oof. Just hearing that, dude, I'm cringing, bro. That's horrible.
That is pretty bad. But he also has matchups against the Redskins and the Falcons in weeks 1 and 3, respectively, which are also really good matchups early on in the season. He also happens to have matchups against the Vikings and the Packers, which have better defenses than the aforementioned teams, but a lot of shootout potential for these
Exactly.
teams.
I was just about to say that. Those games are always good because a lot of times there's a lot on the line. You know, those are NFC teams, so oftentimes these guys will be playing for playoff berths late in the season, so you know that those games are going to be high scoring and a lot of fantasy points available there.
Exactly.
So I think it's fair to say that one of the reasons why people won't draft Carson Wentz in 2019 is because he has this bad injury history. Now, he missed 3 games in 2017 with a torn ACL, and he missed 5 games in 2018 because of a back injury.
So while I do agree that the injury history can't be ignored, I think most people blow it out of proportion, assume that he's missed a lot more games. Really, 8 games in the grand scheme of a career is not that many games. And plus, after everything that Wentz has accomplished and seen while taken from the sidelines, you'd think at this point in his career he would have taken note of other quarterbacks that don't fully rely on their legs all the time to make plays. Wentz has already acknowledged this and now has already come out and said that he's made changes to his regimen, such as sliding more in games, more diet-based changes as well. But because in the past he was willing to sacrifice his body for the couple extra yards. And now Carson must understand that in order to get his team to the next level, he has to protect himself and stay on the field at all times. And now add in Miles Sanders to the equation, and teams will not be able to simply play the deep field anymore as well.
No, exactly. I mean, as an Eagle fan, though, don't you kind of admire that heart about Carson Wentz, that he's willing to give up his body for that extra play?
Like I said earlier, Philadelphia is a sports town. They love when guys are always grinding it out, but I think at the end of the day, you have to think about what's best for yourself and best for the team. And it might be a 4th down, 2 yards short of a 4th down. As long as you're saving yourself for the next play, really, that's a win in my eyes.
Exactly. You want to play smart. I mean, one of the good things, though, about Carson Wentz is that there's a lot of good news coming out of training camp and in this past offseason. When you look at Carson Wentz right now, he's practicing fully, which should give you a lot of optimism for the 2019 season, and which is just why it's a really good reason to keep him on your radar in 2019, in my personal opinion, because right now we know that he's healthy, he's playing, and with all the offensive pieces around him, there's definitely a lot of fantasy football potential there.
Couldn't agree more. Currently being drafted as QB8 with an ADP of 93 overall, or the 9th pick of the 7th round in a normal snake draft. I am personally all over this price. I love this price.
Yeah, me too. I really like Carson Wentz's current ADP. When you look at where he's going late 7th, early 8th, which I personally think is a steal at that certain spot.
Certainly.
I have Carson Wentz ranked as my QB7 just because I think he's in an overall good situation to succeed in 2019 in fantasy football.
Now, I know another aspect that people would bring up is that waiting on a quarterback is a pretty popular strategy. And in most situations, I would agree with that statement.
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree to that too. I personally like taking my quarterbacks late in drafts. However, if you're in a league where quarterbacks are going early, I really think that Carson Wentz is a steal right there in that 7th, 8th round.
Yeah, we're in a high stakes league, and last year we saw Aaron Rodgers go in the 1st, and then at the turn, Tom Brady went. And then it was kind of a QB run from there, which is pretty absurd. That won't happen in most leagues, but that's why it's really important to know who you're drafting with. And know tendencies of everybody that's involved.
Exactly. That's a good draft tip. Look at the tendencies of your previous drafts. It'll tell you a lot of which strategies to take in your next draft.
Exactly. But for me personally, when it comes down to getting a guy that I want and I truly believe in, I'm willing to reach a little bit just to acquire him. In this case, I have Wentz ranked as my QB4, and I believe his ceiling is really an MVP caliber season, just like back in 2017, and maybe a QB1 in fantasy in my eyes as well. And I believe we have yet to see his true potential.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Brandon. So that concludes our first episode of To Draft or Not to Draft. Thanks for watching. Please let us know in the comment section below what you thought of this video.
We know we are a little late to the game when it comes to fantasy advice, but we feel like this quick hitting series is the best way for us to deliver in-depth analysis as quick as possible.
Yeah, and also if you guys have any suggestions of players you would like to see us do analysis on, please let us know in the comment section below, as we are open to as many ideas as possible.
So nice up, click that subscribe button, drop a like, and go win your league. Peace.
Peace.